Thank you, Srividya. Many congratulations to the core team for reaching 100. Century is a very interesting number. Thank you. As usual, we all come into this session from different contexts. So we will give ourselves 30 seconds of total silence to calm our mind. Right? And then we start with a prayer and then we start with the session. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Pranams. Thank you all for your great support. So without much ado, we'll start the session. Those of you who missed the launch session on the 5th and the first introductory session on the 13th, please feel free to watch the YouTube channel and catch up. It will help. As mentioned last time, today we will be focusing on architecture of scriptures. I am planning a 60-minute initial presentation followed by 30 minutes of question and answers. We are particular to stop at 10 sharp. In case it stretches, the general guideline is those of you who have planned something else can exit, no problem, right? So let me share the presentation. I still hear some noise.
Ranga, I am muting everybody. Please unmute and.
Yeah. All right. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, Ranga.
Is it on full screen mode, please?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Great. This is the introductory session 2. As we do every time, we give a very quick recap of what we did so that those people who missed the session could quickly come back on the same page. So, which is what we will do now. It won't take much time. I'll just recap in about 2-3 minutes quickly. We saw that God is same as godliness, and godliness is same as orders. We saw 5 orders. Then we said the orders combined together is intelligence, and this intelligence has as a subset intellect, which is basically a power to analyze logic. Just the same way as we have power to see, we have power to hear, we have power to logically connect and analyze, and hence all the powers are inside intelligence. And so intellect is a subset, a complete, proper, small, tiny subset of the overall intelligence. Right? This intelligence, we said, is all pervading, ever existing, and it's non-discriminative. Right? Law of gravity, everything works for everyone exactly the same way. There is no discrimination. And we said non-discrimination is the first attribute of godliness, right? And the moment we start to discriminate, we fall below divine, and so we become human. Yeah. Now, the orders that we mentioned, the 5 orders, I don't want to get into it. This is just to help you recall so that you are on the same page. Operates like a huge, huge software, right, which is running the whole universe, right? Now, we also saw that it's a cyclical, never-ending process of things becoming manifest from unmanifest and going back to unmanifest from manifest, and it's a cycle that keeps happening again and again and again. It has been happening for trillions and trillions and trillions of years, right? So, in fact, we call it anadi. Adi is start, anadi, when you add the prefix a to a word, like Satyam, Asatyam, it becomes the opposite. So Anadi means there is no start. In a circle, you can't figure out a start and an end, right? It's been happening for trillions and trillions and trillions of years and yugas, right? But what is happening is nothing is created. Things are moving from manifest to unmanifest, unmanifest to manifest, and so on. That's it. We also saw that there are three different means to know, right? In fact, some people in the WhatsApp group are referred to as three types of knowledge. It is not three types of knowledge. It is three ways to know, right? That's what it is. Instinct, intellect, and intuition. Past knowledge, instant access. New knowledge by analysis and logic, which consumes time. New knowledge, instant access, and we said they are higher frequencies. So instinct is the lowest frequency, with intuition being the highest frequency. This awareness is important for us to proceed to the architecture of scriptures. This is what we saw quickly. So we now move on to architecture of scriptures. Just because I summarized the previous session, please don't skip watching the video, because I summarized in 2 minutes. We elaborated a lot, and this is like a headline, right? The actual article is there in the YouTube. So if you have not watched the video, please kindly go back and watch the video completely. Right? Okay. Let's look at the architecture of our scriptures. Architecture is an important thing to understand, right? Architecture is basically, whether it's a technology or it's a software, whatever, basically the big high-level decisions that are taken which don't change over time, right? For example, when you look at India, the architecture of the country, if you look at it, we divided states based on language, right? I mean, that's an architecture decision. That's it. So Tamil Nadu, Tamil-speaking people, West Bengal, Bengal-speaking people, Kerala, Malayalam-speaking people, and so on. We could have divided the country into 100 different ways, right? Like we could have had a state only for men and had a state only for women. I'm just giving an example. There are different ways to sort, right? But we sorted based on language. I mean, that's an architecture-related decision. That means that's a very fundamental decision, right? So even to crack a technology, people say first understand the architecture, whether it is an operating system or anything. Right? So we need to understand the architecture of scriptures, how it is architected. It's a vast, right? So the entire scriptures is called Shastras. Right? Now, Shastras is a combination of two words. Please remember, last time I mentioned, somebody asked me a question, whether we'll be introducing slowly Sanskrit words. Of course, yes, but we are going to be doing it very slowly and steadily, right? Because we must know the correct word which is there. And you will see me writing Shastras in normal plain English, and within bracket you would see Shastras written in a slightly different way with capital A. English doesn't have long vowels like a Telugu or a Kannada or a Sanskrit Devanagari, where there is vowels are long vowels. So if you want to talk about Shastras, you have to usually use SHAATRA, right? So whenever we use a vowel with capital letter, it means it has to be pronounced long, right? So Shastras, right? So that's a pronunciation. So we will follow this pattern as we move along, right? Well, you will see vowels, some vowels in capital letters, right? Shas, to command or to teach, Tra, to save. So basically the meaning of Shastras is to save humans from human problems through commandments and teaching. That's the meaning. So the entire scriptures that we have is called as Shastras. Okay. Now, the first component of Shastras is the Vedas. So you will see again E in capital, A in capital. It's not Veda, it is Veda, right? So long E and long A. So Vedas is the first component of Shastras. So how did Vedas come about, right? So just like how we have air all around us, and there is a prana inside us which keeps sucking the air, inhaling and exhaling. And when the prana stops functioning, we call a person as dead. But air is still outside, even after a person has left the planet, right? That means he has exhaled, he has not yet inhaled. That's it. which inhale and exhale is also called as inspire and expire, right? So you have expired and you're not inspired, and hence we say when a person is dead, we say the person has expired. That means he has let out the prana and it has never come back, right? So just the same way as there is air outside all over, there is also knowledge outside all over, which we call as cosmic intelligence. We can tune in into that knowledge. In fact, you will be wondering from where the ideas are coming from. What is the origin of thoughts? Why is it that one idea is striking one person's mind, whereas it is not striking another person's mind? What is the source of the thoughts, right? So if you look at it carefully, it's a universe of knowledge which is already pre-existing, and that knowledge can be tuned in. You need to tune in into that to be able to access that knowledge. So you have great rishis like Veda Vyasa who tune in into that through intuition. That's why in the last session I introduced the concept of intuition, even though I'm yet to explain it in detail. When I say tune in, what it actually means is through the means of sound, right? Rishis can actually hear the sound. This is to be experienced to understand, right? So the sound is heard. So which means this Vedas was heard, and that is why it is called Shruti. Shruti means something that is heard by the ear, right? Vedas are heard. The cosmic intelligence is tuned in. They are not authored, right? That's why it's called Apaursheya. I'm introducing a new word here. Paursheya means it is authored by somebody. Apaursheya means it is not authored by anybody. Whatever is there, you just come to know of it. That's it, right? So, sorry, 1 second. So you have 4 Vedas. Rig Veda, which is in the poetry form. You have Yajurveda, which is in the prose form. You have Samaveda, which is musical. In fact, entire music seemed to have evolved from Samaveda, right? Then we have Atharvana Veda, which is just plain text. Right? So the Vedas have been categorized into these 4, right? Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharvana, with Rig Veda being the oldest Veda, right? Just to reiterate, this is Apaursheya. That means it is not authored by anybody. It is as heard, and that's it, right? Possibly documented as it is, right? Now, entire Vedas, all the 4 Vedas put together as a group, there is a first part which is called Veda Purva. Purva means beginning. Anta means the end. So there is a Veda Purva, there is a Veda Anta, and when you expand it together, Veda Anta becomes Vedanta, right? So the first part of the 4 Vedas, every Veda has got a Veda Purva and a Veda Anta. The first part of the Veda Purva contains various mantras, various rituals to be done, which are goal-based, like Dasharatha did Putra Kameshti Yagam, desiring to have a child, or you may do a particular yajna to get wealth, or you may do a yajna to get healthy. So different goal-based artha kama kind of pursuits which we have, different goal-based rituals, what need to be done, what cannot be done. There is an Ashwamedha Yaga which is to be done. So all these are prescribed in the first part of the Vedas, and the first part of the Vedas are called Veda Purva, and that Veda Purva is used for all the 4 Vedas. That's why you will see the block which I have shown here covering all the 4 Vedas, right? And the detailed explanations are also given here with the Veda Purva. Veda Anta, which is the end part of each Veda, is philosophy. We call it usually Upanishads. And the entire Veda Anta, which is focusing on knowledge of self, that is self-knowledge, right? Usually in the form of Upanishads, that's what we normally say. There are many Upanishads. 108 Upanishads have been commented upon. Out of that, 10 Upanishads are called as principal Upanishads, right? Like a Brihadaranyaka Upanishad or a Taittiriya Upanishad, right? Now, there are some very small minor Upanishads which are also very powerful, like say, for example, Kaivalya Upanishad. but they are not part of the 10 principal Upanishads. So 10 Upanishads have been categorized as principal Upanishads. Now, these 10 Upanishads or the 108 Upanishads are spread across all the Vedas. That means there are Upanishads which are coming in Yajurveda. There are Upanishads which are coming in Rig Veda, like Taittiriya Upanishad is part of Yajurveda. So all the 4 Vedas have Upanishads at the end, right? So that's a very important concept we must understand, right? So when you say Upanishad, if somebody asks what is Upanishad base, I mean, what is the Veda on which this Upanishad is based, then you must say what Veda it is. And so we must know all 4 Vedas have Upanishads at the end, right? Upanishads are typically teaching a person about understanding oneself through a series of dialogues like questions, answers, and so on. And hence clarity is emerged through this questioning. Right? What are the problems with Vedas? Okay. A lot of issues with Vedas. First, it's too vast. Okay. Imagine, for example, you're writing a specification for how a microwave oven works or should work. Imagine you're writing a specification and giving it to somebody. The minutest detail to which you have to explain, right? Like how the door opens, how the light functions, when you press a button, what should happen, what should be the functions that should be there in a microwave oven, how should each function button work. So in technical language, those of you who are from software, you would know we call it use cases, right? I mean, basically functional description. Each function has to be described. For a simple microwave oven, we have to have such a long specification. If you take a species like, say, a horse, how should the horse breathe? How should the horse jump? How should the horse move? How should the horse sit down? How should the horse die? Right? How a delivery should take place of a horse, of a human being, of another species. If you look at the overall specifications that need to be written down, if you have to write it down, you can imagine the size of it, right? So first of all, we must know that Vedas are too huge. It's vast, really vast. Second, it is has heard. No explanations are given. Right? So whatever somebody said, he just wrote it down. That's it. For example, when Bhagavad Gita was told, Arjuna also heard Bhagavad Gita. And in the palace, Sanjaya also heard Bhagavad Gita. Right? He was simply telling it to Dhritarashtra. Now, Sanjaya also heard Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna also had Bhagavad Gita, but Sanjaya was merely just hearing it, that's it. And he was just passing to Dhritarashtra whatever he heard. No explanations. If Dhritarashtra asked a question to Sanjaya, Sanjaya won't be able to answer, right? Whereas if Arjuna asks a question to Krishna, Krishna will be able to answer, right? So the difference is as heard, and so not much explanations were there. Second problem with Vedas. Third is, lot of aspects were scattered. For example, how to lead a good life. Okay. Now, some information was available in Rig Veda, some information was available in Yajurveda, some were available in Samaveda. So information was scattered, right? Or how do I perform a particular yajna? Again, some pieces in one Veda, some other pieces in another Veda, and so on. So information was not topically organized, and hence they were scattered. So some information looks like it was missing, whereas a missing piece was available somewhere else. So the third issue with Vedas was it's scattered. The fourth issue with Vedas was many of the statements were pretty vague because the explanation came in some other Veda. Right? So when you have a vague statement, it's very difficult to understand what it is. Right? Fourth, it looked very contradictory because what is said in one Veda and what is said in another Veda were contradictory. It seemed contradictory because you had to put the pieces together to understand the whole thing. Right? For example, if I say the sun rises and sets every day, I am right because it's a fact for me. A person sitting in North Pole, like for example, say Iceland, will say, no, sun never rises or sets, Ranga, sun is always on the sky. I see it always on the sky. Now, he's also right. Now, sun rises and sets is right, or sun is always on the sky is right. Like when one person is seeing a new moon, somebody on the other side of the earth is seeing a no moon. Now, he says it's a no moon day, somebody else says it's a full moon day, which is right, which is wrong. So, to understand contradictions which seem to be there. We need to get the whole picture, right? So now these were some of the fundamental problems of Vedas. And obviously, when things are not easy, people tend to keep away from it. So very, very few people started accessing it, but otherwise nobody did that. So how do you sort out these issues? Second, it is very vast, right? How do you pass it on to somebody, right? How do you tell somebody? How do you teach somebody? You have a student, how do you teach him, right? Because nothing is written down, right? So the sorting out happened by bringing in something called sutras. So sutras was a second layer of the architecture. It is like compressing a file. Okay, so you have a 1 GB data file, you compress it and it comes 100 MB. But codification has its own problem because you have to have a encryption algorithm, a decryption algorithm, and so on. But it is codified. It's codified as a forums. Vastness compressed into sutras. So you have a small sutra. Classic example for a sutra is an abbreviation, right? So you have AIR standing for All India Radio, or you have your UNICEF standing for Children Emergency Fund. So when you codify something, when you expand it, it becomes bigger. But codified itself is small. So you have addressed the problem of vastness by codifying it, right? And in the process of codifying, somebody culled out all information related to different topics and put it together. So all information related to yoga, for example, which is there in Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Dharana Veda, all information related to yoga was put together and codified and called Yoga Sutra, right? So topical reorganization happened and contradictions were clarified. So this is exactly what happened in sutras. Like we have 4 Vedas, there are multiple sutras. But remember, sutras are authored. And authored not by one rishi, but by many rishis. Many people were involved in authoring sutras, like Yoga Sutra authored by somebody else, Brahma Sutra authored by somebody else, so on and so forth. Because it is authored, it's called Paursheya, right? Whereas Vedas was Apaursheya, right? Remember, when you add a prefix "a" to a word, it becomes the opposite, right? So, sutras were authored by many people. Then we had Dharma Sutra, which is talking about what is a dharmic way to live a life. Then we had Grihya Sutra, which talks about everything about home life and everything about what it is to lead a good family life in a very dharmic way. So that's a Grihya Sutra. Then Kama Sutra talked about the sexual pleasures, how the physical side, the pleasure seeking is to be done. So Kama Sutra dealt in detail about this, which was available in all the 4 Vedas, scattered. Then you had Yoga Sutra, which is about yoga and various, the 8-step Ashtanga Yoga, which is by Patanjali. So that talked about Yoga Sutra. Then the mother of all sutras, we call it as Brahma Sutra, which talks about the Brahmanyanam, which talks about the actual what it is there about the universe, the entire secrets, which are revealed in Brahma Sutra. Now, of course, ... indicates there are many more sutras, right? And some of the sutras are very simple, but used widely in various contexts. For example, there's something called Katapayadi Sutra, which is used in music. Like, how do you decode the swaras from the name of the raga, right? Suppose I say Shankara Bharanam. From the name, can I decode the actual swaras that need to be played? You use a sutra called Katapayadi, and then from that, if you calculate, you will know exactly what are the swaras to be played for that particular raga, right? So you don't need to refer a book for it. So classic codifications were done. ... indicates there's lots and lots of sutras which are there. Now, are there issues with respect to sutra? Of course, yes. Just like how we had issues with Vedas, we have issues with sutra. What are the issues? The decoding part, right? So you need a decryption algorithm. So if somebody says UNICEF, you must know how to expand it, right? Or you have a video file which is compressed, right? But if you look at it carefully, a 1 GB document file can be compressed to 100 MB, but a 1 GB video file normally will be very close to 1 GB because it's already compressed, right? So vastness was there, but it was reduced, but not to such an extent. So sutras were still huge, right? Decoding was an issue. because it is sutra, because it is codified, it became difficult to understand, right? So Patanjali, for example, just made one statement. You don't know what the statement means because it is codified, right? So we have to decode it. So these were the problems with the next layer, sutras. But please remember, sutra as a layer is sitting on top of Vedas to address some of the issues of Vedas, right? It did successfully address some issues, right? It brought in grouping, classification, it brought in reduce the size, so it did address some of the issues, right? But it had its own issues. So like it's typically like to solve one problem, you come out with the solution, and the solution has its own problems, right? Like a child felt bored at home, it wanted social interaction, so you put the child in a school. It had social interaction, but then along with it came issues of monthly test, midterm test, final test, and so on and so forth. More issues came up, but the social issue got sorted out, right? So whenever we find a solution to a problem, you may end up with some other problems which need to be sorted out. So the issues related to sutra need to be sorted out, but let's be very clear. Sutras had no new content. Let me repeat, sutra had no new content. The content was Vedas. Okay, it was only a reorganization and it was more codification. Right? So no new content has been added or by the authors. Authors have only tried helping how it can be passed on to the next generation better way without a written tool. Right? Now, how do you solve the problems of the sutras? Okay. So came the next layer of our scriptures called Smriti. Remember, Vedas are called Shruti because you hear it, right? Smriti brought in something called poems. So you can sing. If you look at human memory, a song that you heard in your childhood, you will remember the tune even today, but you will forget the words. Lyrics are not remembered, but the tune is remembered, right? So we say la 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 la, we complete it, right? Even mathematical tables, when a child memorizes, right? 5 1s are 5, 5 2s are 10, 5 3s are 15. At 5 7, if you stop the child will start from 5 1s are 5 because the whole link is broken, right? So the link, so our human memory, we only remember links. So in a poetical form, metrical form, what is called meters, in Sanskrit, or in Sanskrit we call it chandas. So all these things were converted into poems and slightly elaborated because codification was a little cryptic. So roughly the ratio of 1:10, the elaboration was done. The topical aspect was maintained. Then role-based duties and responsibilities were also told because human beings always want to know the do's and don'ts, right? And we always keep looking at somebody else for give me instruction, give me instruction, give me instruction, because we are tuned to receiving instruction. So all the Smriti is all about rules, definitions, do's, don'ts, right? Authored, obviously authored. It's authored means Paursheya, right? I'm repeating these words so that these words can go into our head because any repetition helps us to memorize, right? Remember the capital E there, it's not Paursheya, it's Paursheya, right? So the long vowel. Authored again by multiple rishis, different people contributed to Smriti. Manusmriti, how do you lead a day-to-day life? Then we had Parasara Smriti, then we had Yajnavalkya Smriti, then of course multiple other Smritis which were there. But we must know the basic of Smritis, which is poetical form, slightly expanded on the sutras, roughly 1:10 ratio, and it addressed the issue of remembrance, memory, by making it song, right? Because tunes are remembered, right? So did Smriti have an issue? Yes, it had definitely issues. So what are the issues of Smriti? While we all want rules, we also don't like it. It's very interesting, right? When we go to a place, we say, tell me the do's and don'ts. And when somebody tells you the do's and don'ts, we don't want to follow it. We say, why is this rule there? Why can't that rule be there? So it's a very paradoxical human mind, like on one side we want instructions, on the other side we don't want to follow it, we want freedom. So it's a kind of a confused way of life, right? So the problem with Smriti is people started questioning the rules. Why the hell should I do it? I won't do it. So rebellions came into picture, right? So I won't do this, I won't follow this, and this is ridiculous. This rule is very gender biased. So I won't follow. So women refuse to follow. Some rules men refuse to follow. So all that started to happen because rules are not really loved by people, right? Second, there was no scope for emotions. See, human beings always connect to emotions. In fact, we connect more to negative emotion than positive emotion, right? That's again a law of nature that negativity sticks more than positivity. Right? So I gave an example in the last session that when I'm driving on the road, there are wonderful flowers on the roadside. We don't stop a car. But if there is an accident, we stop a car and watch, right? So somebody hurt you badly with a word, that word sticks in your mind. But whereas that same person would have told you 100 positive words, those words we don't remember. We remember the harm done by somebody to us. We remember, whereas the good things done by somebody, we don't remember. This is again a law of nature. But the fact is, in this case, Smriti, there are no emotions. Okay, it's just set of do's and don'ts, do's and don'ts, do's and don'ts, right? So it was very difficult for humans to connect. So when there is no emotion, we are like Captain Spock of Star Trek. If you have watched the ancient series, right? Even Rajinikanth's movie on Robo, robotic, highly robotic, and then he pumps in feelings and emotion into the robo, and then you know what happened in the movie, right? So this didn't have emotions, no stories, no engagement. Why we are all addicted? Many of us are addicted to, say, Netflix or any of those series because huge engagement happens. You just can't take your eyes off that screen, right? And that's why we do binge watching, because there are no stories, full of stories and full of engagement. Whereas in the Smritis, there was no stories, there was no engagement, an audience felt bored. So you read a Smriti for 10 minutes and then you feel sleepy, right? Fine. And then you finally conclude that Smriti objective itself is to get good sleep. So all those things started to happen, right? No stories, no engagement. Now, how do you sort out this problem? Right? So to sort out this problem came the next hierarchy, right? Again, here there is no new content, right? Came the Puranas. So Puranas, two capital A's there. So it's not Purana, it is Puranas, right? So here you talked about personification. You brought in a Shiva, you brought in a Vishnu, you brought in a Muruga, you brought in demons, you brought in Devas, you brought in a whole lot of these people because people can connect to it, right? Because I can see there is a fundamental aspect of our learning. Human learning is always, I can learn the unknown only from the known. It's very difficult for me to learn an unknown from unknown. It's not possible, right? So if I introduce a new concept, I need to explain it using concepts that somebody already knows. Otherwise, people can't relate to it, right? So when every day we are seeing human beings, we're seeing feelings, we're seeing emotions, we're seeing fights, right? We're seeing accidents. This is what we're seeing. So we know all this. So we need to present concepts of Vedas in a story through everyday events, through emotions like excitement, war, fight, right? So personification started, symbolization started, stories and poetic events and emotions came in. It had a huge engagement with readers, and it's elaborated 1:100. Remember, Smritis were elaborated 1:10 from the code. Here it is almost elaborated 1:100, right? And these were the Puranas, and there are many Puranas. Like we have a Bhagavata Purana, we have Vishnu Purana, which is based on Vishnu. We have a Shiva Purana, which is based on Shiva. We have a Harishchandra Purana, which is based on Harishchandra. We have a Skanda Purana, which is based on Muruga, right? 18 Puranas and Upa Puranas were authored. Obviously, it is authored. I'm not now repeating it because it's already been repeated 3 times. So, you know, it is not Apaurshaya, it is Paurshaya because it is authored, and it is authored obviously not by one person, it's authored by several people, right? So they were full of stories and events. Engagement is pretty high, right? Now, did it have problems? Yes, it has its own problems. So what kind of issues did this have? Who are the heroes in these stories? Gods. Like Shiva Purana, the hero was Shiva. Vishnu Purana, the hero was Vishnu. Skanda Purana, the hero was Lord Kartikeya, right? Now, although it is stories, all that is all understood, But a human being still sees a gap, right? He sees a God as God, right? He can't see himself as God. He's not reached the stage yet. So gods were the heroes and heroines and villains and comedians and everybody. It's very difficult for a human to, yeah, while he or she understood it, very difficult to connect because normal people are not involved. It's only gods who are involved, right? This is the first part. So there was no scope for normal people to be involved. Then the incidents were very, what I call, very divine kind of incidents, like somebody stopping the sun from rising. Now, something I can't relate to because how do I stop the sun from rising? Though as a story, I understand, but I still am not convinced that that can be done because I am not able to do it. So human mind says, if I can't do it, nobody can do it, right? Or if anybody does it, then that person must be some very special person, right? So handling the Panchabhutas, how do I affect the Panchabhutas? So somebody affected the Panchabhutas, right? No, I don't think I can connect to it. So there are real life events here. There are cosmic events, there are divine events, but where are real life events here? So while Purana sorted out the problem of Captain Spock in Smriti, Purana still had a distance from the normal human beings because they were more God-centric, right, and not human being-centric. So how do you sort out this problem? This is a very important problem. Of course, it's important to know that new content, definitely yes. There's a lot of masala added to it. There's a lot of spice added to it just to make people connect to it, right? So it's not a straightforward statement. He killed that person, then you need to elaborate. You have to say how he killed him, what instrument was used, what how blood flew. So we need to add a lot of masala to it, right? I mean, unless masala is added, the stories are not very engaging. So Puranas, there's a lot of spice, right, as compared to Vedas, which just didn't have spice. It's just plain and simple, right? To sort out these issues came itihasas. Pronunciation is itihasa, right? Two long vowels there, right? Then itihasas talked about portrayal of real life people. Now I connect to a Duryodhana, right? Because I have one in the family. I connect to Duchashana. Okay, there are many in the families. So I have real life people there. I connect to Rama. I connect to Sita. I connect to Jambavan. I connect to everybody. So portrayal of real life people, and the events are all day-to-day events. They're not cosmic events, right? Like Duryodhana felt jealous about Dharma. I understand that. Dharma had a weakness for playing a game. I understand that. Of course, yes. Many of us have a weakness to playing video games, right? So you start a game, you don't know how to finish it. You keep on playing that. So when Dharma had a weakness for playing the game of dice, I understand. I'm able to connect to it because it's real life event. It's day-to-day event for me, right? Of course, gods were not kept away. In the itihasas, gods were there. So Krishna was there in Mahabharata, Rama was there in Ramayana, right? But they are more human people, right? So there's a beautiful Tamil song. I'll translate it also. So first, somebody who feels who fell in love and the girl dished him, so he felt so frustrated, right? So he wanted God to have the same experience, right? So Kannadasan wrote a beautiful song, right? Kadavul manidanaha pirakka vendum, avan kadalithu vedanayil vaada vendum. It actually means, the God must be born as a human being, and then he should fall in love and he should suffer like I am suffering, right? So that's the meaning of the song. So I think somewhere down the line, the Avatara Purushas who come in also experience the same things that you and I experience, like losing a wife and then searching for it and crying, right? And seeking the help of somebody, right? Rama giving a leadership talk to the army of monkeys. So everything is day-to-day events, but gods are not kept away. Avatars and their roles are also there, and it's highly emotion-packed, right? I'm sure most of us must have watched the Vijay TV Mahabharata. We desperately waited for the next event to happen, right? Because we know it's highly emotion-packed, and there are times we watch the Vijay TV Mahabharata, binge watch it. We watch some 10 serials at a shot, right? Because it's so emotion-packed. And when it is emotion packed, whether it's negative emotions or positive emotions, and more so if there are negative emotions, we get hooked much more, right? Like somebody betraying somebody, somebody killing somebody, somebody cheating somebody. These things actually attract us more than somebody being very honest, somebody being very, high integrity. Okay, it's all there, right? But it doesn't attract us much. So Itihasas sorted the problem of gods being the heroes. Itihasas brought in day-to-day real-life people as heroes and heroines and villains and comedians, right? All this happened. So you have Ramayana, which is 24,000 poems. Then we have Mahabharata, which is 1 lakh poems, right? All this happened. Now, Bhagavad Gita comes at the end of Mahabharata. It is like Krishna talking to Arjuna. But even though it's Krishna who is talking to Arjuna, it is actually authored by, right, Vedavyasa, right? So it's authored by the person. In fact, entire Bhagavad Gita has been authored. Suppose you ask somebody who is the author of Bhagavad Gita, many people say Krishna. Now, Krishna is not the author of Bhagavad Gita. It's a Vedavyasa who authored Mahabharata, is the author of Bhagavad Gita. But it's very important to know here, extremely important to know here, that Bhagavad Gita, even though it was authored by somebody, it has all the content directly taken from the Vedas, right? That is why they say that if you can't study the entire Vedas, you study Bhagavad Gita, right? And Bhagavad Gita presents the complete essence of all the 4 Vedas put together directly, without going through the Sutra, Smriti, Purana kind of a route. Directly kind of short circuits the whole learning and brings about everything to you clearly in terms of what it is. Right? So Bhagavad Gita, but technically it is part of Mahabharata, it is technically part of the Itihasa, it is technically authored, right? But Bhagavad Gita is not called as Pausheya, even though it is authored, it is still called Apausheya because the entire content without modification has been taken from Vedas, even though a little elaboration has been given, right? Now, so you have Itihasas. Author is Rishis. Author is Rishis. In fact, somebody said Mahabharata is all bullshit. That's what somebody said. And this person said, okay, it can be bullshit. But remember, somebody writing a story, 1 lakh verses, with so much of consistency, so much of characters, so much of emotions, right? That guy must be a great author, yeah? Right? Like, say, an Amish who writes a Shiva trilogy, or today you have a book called say Who Moved My Cheese, which is a management book, 40-50 page book, which is costing around 400-500 rupees, right? It's about 4 mice running around here and there. When that book can be so popular, imagine somebody writing Mahabharata, somebody visualizing all the characters here, right? I mean, so many characters are there. Even Kauravas are 100 children, right? I mean, look at the number of characters and look at the consistency, look at the plots which are there, the dramas which are there, right? So I think, yeah, you need a rishi to write this. Right? Obviously, a human being cannot write this. So, so we have itihasas, which are obviously spiced and spiced more, right? So you use all the spices, right? South Indian spice, North Indian spice, Italian spice. You use all the spices possible so that it's exciting for people, and you read it. Right? So this is the itihasa part. Then on top of it came bhashyas. Right? It's not Bhashya, it is Bhashyas. Bhashya mean commentary, right? It's like the Sunil Gavaskar and Harsha Bhogle who keeps commenting, right? He should have played a cover drive, in cricket. So you have commentators. So people who are writing commentaries by scholars, various scholars have written commentary on Itihasa, on Purana, on Smriti, right? These are elaborations, these are perspectives, these are explanations, these are with analogies and examples, right? Adi Shankara was a great Bhashyakara. People who are write Bhashyas are called Bhashyakara. So Adi Shankara was a Bhashyakara, Ramanujar was a Bhashyakara, Sayana was a Bhashyakara, Max Muller was a Bhashyakara. Max Muller, the German, he has written one of the best commentaries for Rig Veda, right? In fact, he was the first person to write a fantastic, very elaborate commentary on Rig Veda. There are many, many foreigners who have done extensive research on Rig Veda. on not just Rig Veda, all the Vedas, right? And you will see certain books like books written on Lalita. All those books, you will see many books written by foreigners, extensively technical. I mean, they have invested years and years in doing research in Sanskrit, and they have converted themselves to almost a rishi, and to be able to write that, right? So these are all Bhashyakaras who are there. Now, we should know that Bhashyas are written across all the other layers, right? Like you have Bhashyas for Itihasas, we have Bhashyas for Smriti, we have Bhashyas for Sutras, we have Bhashyas for Vedas. So all the Bhashyas are there for everything put together, right? Now let's quickly number them so that we know the layers. So 1 is the Vedas, 2 is the Sutras, 3 is Smriti, 4 is Puranas, 5 is Itihasas, and the last one is Bhashyas, right? So this is the overall architecture of our entire scriptures, right? Many times we hear them as stories. We don't even read Ramayana directly. We hear some stories. In fact, many of the children today know only the Vijay TV Ramayana, Mahabharata, which they have seen. The real Ramayana, Mahabharata, they may not know. So they know that this is what Arjuna did. But actually, if you tell them Arjuna never did this, they'll say, go and watch this episode in Vijay TV. That's what Arjuna did, right? So the author who wrote the Vijay TV Mahabharata, you can look at him more as a Bhashyakara. I mean, he just expanded on whatever, added his own spice and masala to it and made it, right? So you have a situation of commentary, sub-commentary, sub-commentary, and so on and so forth. In fact, frankly speaking, you can look at my presentation itself as an elaboration, as a perspective of the whole thing, right? So I think there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have written this. Now, I just want to give you an idea of the vastness of the whole thing, so that we know what it is. One disciple of Adi Shankara. Remember, Adi Shankara was only one of the Bhashyakaras, right? We had Ramanuja, we had Sayana, we had a lot of others, right? So one of the Bhashyakara, say Adi Shankara, Shankara Bhashyam, is there available for many of the scripts. He had many disciples. One of the disciples wrote one book called Panchadashi. Pancha is 5, Dashi is 10. So that book had 15 chapters, roughly 3,000 verses. And in that 15 chapter, in one of the chapters, using 300 verses, the author explains why human beings cannot be satisfied, cannot be contented. The chapter title is Tripti. Tripti is a very strong word. Tripti does not mean satisfaction. It does not mean contentment. It's a very holistic word, right? Why it's not possible for humans to get Tripti, right? 300 verses. Similarly, another 300 verses. That book talks about what happens when a lady conceives a baby inside. During the 9 months, what happens? Like when you buy a laptop, new laptop, you have to make sure that all the hardware components are connected. Then you have to load the operating system. Then the device drivers have to be loaded. Then once the operating system is ready, then you have to load various applications like MS Office, Excel, and PowerPoint, and so on, right? Everything needs to be done in a particular sequence, right? Same way, when a human baby is conceived in the womb of a mother, what all happens during the 9 months? What softwares are installed? When does it get installed? Which day it gets installed? Why does it take exactly 9 months for the baby to be born? Every day something happens, but what happens on that every day? Everything is documented cleanly using, say, a set of 300 verses. The entire Panchadashi is 3,000 verses, roughly. Now, imagine this. One of the books by one of the disciples of one of the Bhashyakara is so vast. And you can imagine what is the size of the animal we are handling, right? Now, my purpose of telling this to you is not to overwhelm you and to drive you away from seeking this knowledge. No, that's not my objective. My objective is to say how deep our culture is, how deeply knowledgeable our Sanatana Dharma is, and it will be sad if we come from that culture and we don't know it. It'd be really sad, isn't it? So let the vastness not deter us from seeking this. But if we approach it systematically in a very structured way, we can conquer this animal. Believe me, we can, right? Right? Conquer the animal is a phrase used. So I'm not in any way referring to our scriptures as animal. Please don't think that I'm using a wrong analogy here. That's a cliche, right? Conquer the animal. That means it's something very complex and we need to get it right. The advantage is everything is logical, everything is deterministic, and everything is clean and simple. So we just need to conquer it slowly, one piece at a time. Most important, in a structured, logical manner. Then it all falls in place, right? So that's a journey that we will actually be taking. This is the overall architecture of scriptures, right? Now, before I open the floor for discussion, right, I also want to tell you what next. That means what is going to happen in the third introductory session, which is coming on the next Thursday, right? You must know, because everything is built like a story, right? So you must know what comes next. Out of all these structures that we have seen, right? Sorry. Out of all the structures that we have seen, there is a fundamental question that we need to address, which is what we will focus in the whole of next class, right? For example, what is the fundamental human problem there? Kya problem? Right? In fact, when somebody says I have a problem, you say, what? Kya problem hai? What is the problem you're facing? Come on. You have everything, but you're still unhappy. There is a guy who's not having anything. He's also unhappy. Right? In fact, I saw a very beautiful poster. It's a meme that came on WhatsApp. Right? A guy who is drinking liquor is also in debt. The guy who is selling liquor is also in debt. The guy who is manufacturing liquor is also in debt. Then who the hell has the money? Right? So I think it's important for us to know what is the fundamental human problem. Why is joy eluding us? Why can't we be joyous at all times? Right? In fact, when you meet somebody and ask him, how are you? He says, yeah, I am excellent. One look at the face, you know he's not excellent. He's simply saying it. Right? So why is joy eluding us? Why is peace eluding us? Why there is so much tension in the head? Right? There's so much anxiety about the future. Why? Right? Very interesting. Recently, it happened to me last week. Your father calls me and tells me that, Ranga, I would like to discuss the career of my son with you. He has got a placement in a company. He has finished his engineering. So I am coming to talk to you, and there's a lot of tension, Ranga, as to what he will do in the future. All this dialogue happens, right? So much tension. And the next couple of days, I hear the news that the son committed suicide. Now what? Right? Let's be clear. Why don't we have peace? We have everything. So why is joy eluding us? Why is peace eluding us? Why do we feel insecure? Why can't we take free decisions in life, like leaving a job and starting something on your own, or stopping a business which is making loss and going back to employment, or just going and exploring the world, or doing some adventure sports, right? Like skydiving. Why do we feel insecure? Where is the fear coming from? Right? And do we really have a free will? Do we really have choice at all? Or everything is destined? If everything is destined, then why am I attending this lecture? Why? So I think we need to have clear answers for these questions before we can proceed any further with the journey, right? So the next Thursday, right, we will go deep into each of this, which are practical, day to day. Remember the vision, the purpose of this entire journey, to live a joyful and a peaceful life every day. Can you laugh? Can you have a belly laugh? Many of us need to ask this question to ourselves. When was the last time I had a belly laugh? Right? In fact, today we are in a situation where people even judge jokes. They say his joke was better than your joke. Yesterday's joke was better than today's joke. People get into, and they go to a laughing club to laugh, right? So I think the purpose is to live a joyful and a peaceful life. That is the reason why we are understanding all this. Our objective is not to decode the entire Vedas. Then one lifetime is definitely not enough. 10 lifetimes is definitely not enough. Right? That's not the objective. How do I use this scriptural knowledge to enhance the joy and peace in my life? I think that's the focus. Right? So this is what we will do next Thursday. Now, I also want to give you a glimpse of what is following after the next Thursday. The reason is this. We said it's a lifelong journey, right? But people find it very difficult to handle ambiguity. Now, people want a lot of certainty. Ranga, tell me clearly 9 to 10 what we will do, 10 to 11 what we will do, 11 to 12 what we will do. People want schedule. People want calendar invite, right? Because we got used to it, right? If I tell them just go into the journey, let's see what happens, they'll say, no, Ranga, I don't want to walk into something like that. Sorry, right? So I would like to also share with you what's coming up next. Very deliberately, we decided that we will do 3 introductory sessions here. Okay, very deliberately. It's a very important architecture decision, which we as core team took, saying we need to show to people what is the journey that we're taking up. Okay. And then let them take a decision whether they want to sign up or don't want to sign up. Right. So I have to give you what I have planned for the next 6 to 8 months for you. Right. Like in when I posted the video that I want to make it exciting as a Netflix original series. Somebody said, Ranga, don't dilute the scripture studying by comparing it with Netflix. Somebody got very emotional about it. That was only an analogy, just to say, can we make it exciting? Can we make people look forward to coming? Right. So that's the idea. So with next Thursday, season 1 will be over. Okay. Right, of Joyful Vedanta, right? Then we start. Can you mute, please, Subbu?
Yes, Ranga, I will do that.
Yeah, okay. Then I need to unmute, right? Okay, thanks. Am I audible?
Yes.
Am I audible? Thank you.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. So with next Thursday, season 1 of Joyful Vedanta is over. Then we start season 2. Okay, right. There is a gap between season 1 and season 2, during which time we'll communicate to you the what it means in this journey, what it means to you, what it means to us, and all the choices that you have, all the choices that we have. It obviously will not be on Thursdays, so all these, a lot of things need to be communicated amongst us before we can take a call. But we need to know what is in season 2. I'll be taking about 5 more minutes, Srividya. It's 9:32. I'll take another 5 minutes and then we'll open for Q&A. Is it okay, Srividya?
Sure, sure.
Thank you. So what is coming in season 2? Right. Season 2 is scheduled for the next 6 to 8 months, right? Roughly about 12 to 14 sessions of 90 minutes each. And I have a complete structure in terms of what should be covered in what, and how we have to kind of go about it in a very logical fashion. So I call the next season 2 as module 1. Okay, first module. What does first module contain? First module contains an understanding of the 3 bodies that we have. Okay, my slide is still visible, Srividya?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. The 3 bodies that we have. Many people think we have only one body. No, One body is physical body. Then we have something called as a subtle body. Then we have something called egg, the seed, right? The causal body. So we have three bodies. Like where does ego sit? Obviously, it is not on the physical body, right? Whereas we know heart is on the physical body. But where is ego sitting there? Where is, for example, my prana sitting there? Right? Where is my guna, which is my mindset, sitting there in the body? So first, we need to understand the three bodies that we have in detail. Then we need to understand the three states of experience that we have. Like we all go through three states of experience, like an awakened state, in a state in which you and I are there right now, right? Fully tuned. Then we go through a dream state, right? When we sleep, we get dreams. Then we go through deep sleep state. Of course, some people, when they are awake itself, they are in a dream state. Very interesting people, right? So we call it Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, right? So the three bodies are called as Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. Three states are called, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Then we need to know the 5 sheets of our personality, right? And there are 5 layers of our personality. Like there is a physical layer, then there is a pranic layer, then there is mind, there is a mental layer, then there is an intellect, there is an intellectual layer, then there is a bliss layer, right? The 5 koshas, what we call, right? The Annamaya kosha, the Pranamaya kosha, the Manomaya kosha, the Vijnanamaya kosha, and the Anandamaya kosha. So the 5 sheets of our personality we need to understand, because self-knowledge starts with knowing oneself completely. So first step is to know myself fully before I can know the world, right? Then there are 3 powers given to us, great powers given to us, which we call Ichcha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti. Ichcha Shakti is power to desire, which animals don't have. All the desires animals have is all programmed completely, but we have a free will. So we can desire an iPhone, we can desire a BMW car. So we can aspire, we can say that next year I will do a target of 20% more than this year. So all these targets animals don't seem to have. Plants don't seem to have. So we have 3 powers: Ichcha Shakti, the power to desire; Jnana Shakti, which is power to go and seek knowledge, right? And last, Kriya Shakti, the power to act out of our free will, which animals again don't have a free will, right? So they just act according to their programs. That's all. That's why animals don't have a moral conflict or an ethical conflict. Right? So whereas we have a lot of ethical and moral conflict because we have a free will. So what are the 3 powers? In fact, in Lalita Sahasranam, Lalita is described as the mother of all the 3 Shaktis. It comes as Ichcha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Swarupani, right? So the 3 great powers that we have. Then the 3 mindsets, core mindsets that we have, right? Like the gunas, as we call the Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic guna. So what are these gunas which are there? Then the 3 time scales. We need to understand the concept of Kala, the time itself, past, present, and future. We need to understand this pretty well. Where does birth and death fit? Who is responsible for all these 3 Kalas? The Trikala, we call it. Then we need to understand the 3-fold paths which are available to us to understand this, which is the 3 yogas, as they call, the Karma Yoga, the Upasana Yoga, the Jnana Yoga. Of course, there are other yogas like Bhakti Yoga, etc. Right? Bhagavad Gita talks about the 3 yogas. In fact, Bhagavad Gita 18 chapters is split into 6 chapters, 6 chapters, and 6 chapters. Right? So Prathama Shadgam, Madhyama Shadgam, and Antima Shadgam. Shadgam means 6 chapters. First 6 chapters talk about Karma Yoga. Next 6 chapters talk about Upasana Yoga. The last 6 chapters talk about Jnana Yoga. Right? So what are those 3-fold paths that are available to us? And the Sanskrit word for all of this is 3 bodies are called as Shariratrayam. Stula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira. It is also called Dehatrayam. Then 3 states of experience is called Avastha Trayam. Avastha is experience, which is Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. Then 5 sheets of personality, the Kosha Panchakam, which is Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, and Anandamaya Kosha. Then the 3 powers, which is the Shakti, which is called Shakti Trayam, which is Ichcha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti. Then the 3 months, the mindsets which are called Gunatrayam, the Sattva Guna, the Rajas Guna, the Tamas Guna. Then the 3 time scales, which is Kalatrayam, which is the past, present, and future. The 3-fold paths, which are called Yogatrayam, which is Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. And we need to cover all this. And it will take at least 12 to 15 sessions of 90 minutes each. And of course, before we jump into all this, there is a qualifying round, like what Sri Lanka and West Indies are going through now. You have to first qualify to study these things, and that qualification is called Sadhana Sadushtayam, which itself will take about 3 sessions. So where we understand how do we qualify ourselves for this journey, right? And if you don't qualify, we will have a problem in this journey, right? I mean, if you're planning to go to a Kailash Manasarovar Yatra, you have to prepare yourself, right? If you go to a Chardham Yatra, you have to prepare yourself. Without preparing, you just can't go on trek, right? So there is a preparatory round which is involved, which is the Sadhana Chatushtayam, which happens. Then after that, all these things will be explained in detail, and it will take that much time. It takes about 15 sessions of 90 minutes. But I have the complete structure in terms of what learning to be brought about, and how to make it so exciting, the season 2, so that we really get addicted in a very positive way to knowledge, and to understand ourselves and to understand. And advantage of understanding ourselves is, I think we take better decisions. We are able to achieve our aspirations much faster, and we are able to aspire far larger things, right? We become extremely productive and efficient. And so there are tons and tons of advantages which happen because of knowing all this. So this is in short what your season 2 will be, which will be after season 1, which will complete coming Thursday.